But I wanted to thank everyone for joining today. Today we're going to be looking at really the idea of creating impactful design documents. We're going to go through several different things. We'll talk about a little bit about the purpose of a design document, and then go through, and actually we're going to use our tool, Learning Design Tool, to kind of walk you through everything that you should have in it. Obviously, our tool is a great tool to help you in that design phase, but all the items we're going to go through you could create on your own, not using it, but I do recommend doing it. So the big thing we want to start with is, what's the purpose of a design document? Right? And so if we think about this, the design document really falls, if we're looking at this in the ADDIE model, if you're using the SAM model, I would still think you do want to have a design document in it. But it's a blueprint, or I prefer to think of it like a sales document of what we're trying to do to achieve the overall goal of our training program. Right? It's basically a place where we can capture everything that we need to have. The ideas that the analysis, summarize the analysis data. We can set up our instructional strategies, how we're going to assess our learners, what are all the objectives that we are assessing, setting up our course structure, having all of those things in one place, but giving us the ability to take it to the stakeholder, right? Take it to the organization and say, here's what we're going to do. Here's everything that we think needs to be resolved based off the analysis that we did previously in the, when we're in the ADDIE model, but laying it all out in that now whoever is, whoever's part of creating your learning program, your training program, they've got something to kind of set the stage and help them move forward into the development portion, right? People that you may want to consider having, being part of the whole design document phase. Obviously, it's a stakeholder, right? So that could be the organization, right? It could be the person, the department that you're building the training for, or the client that you're building the training for. But the stakeholder, because they're at the end of the day, they're the client. But is it the project manager who's overseeing the entire development of this training program? L&D manager, training coordinator, right? Whatever, however terms you want to do that. Obviously, I would have your instructional designers part of it. If your content developers, your L&D specialists are separate, maybe they're getting a piece of it, or it's being shared with them. Subject matter experts. So there could be several different people that could be part of this, but we want to make sure, again, the end result is it's a blueprint or that sales document to kind of set the stage for us to successfully build our training programs or our learning programs. Now we're going to go through and we're going to look at this today in several stages. And again, we're going to use the learning design tool, and really the template that it gives you to help build this out, because it lays out each of these stages. But the first one that we're going to go through, and I will point out, if any point during this you have any questions or anything comes up, please speak up, put them into chat. We'll be happy to go through any and all of them, or reach out after the fact and we can cover them at that point. But really, if we start thinking of the design, what are we designing, right? What are we designing to solve? We really got to look at why are we getting to this place where we do need to possibly develop a training program. All right, and I will say, training's not always the answer, right? Being in the L&D field, right? A lot of times when we get to it, it is the answer, but there's times where, right, we don't necessarily need a training program. Maybe we just need more coaching at the sales level, or this can be resolved with a series of emails or things like that. But the analysis stage, and even getting into the, into this design document can kind of help you set those, figure out the best manner to go about it. So when we're looking at getting together, putting together this design document, our sales document of why we're doing this training, because remember, it's capturing everything, we want to have a place where we can put in what the analysis is, right? When we did our searching, what type of things were there? So looking here, if we're looking at, what type of analysis you're looking at, things that you're going to be looking at, like what's the statement of need, right? And so again, we're looking at this in terms of our learning design tool. So when it breaks down and gives you a place to fill in all your content, the analysis of your content, not only is it telling you the different categories in these fields, right, like next to statement of need, it's letting you know, really giving you an idea of what that is. One thing you'll find is a lot of times when building design documents, you bring 7 instructional designers and you say, I need you to build me a design document, you're probably going to get 8 different layouts. So having a standard one is going to help. It will help your existing instructional designers, and it's a great tool for learning and developing for your new instructional designers. But again, wrong button. Let me come back here. This one. So if we're looking at this, like at our statement of need, just as an example, describe the nature of the opportunity or problem of what's currently occurring. Right? So again, we're trying to get everyone on board of our solution that we're proposing throughout this whole design document. Let's first come out and we're stating, hey, here's what is the issue, right? Could be, let's look at this in terms of sales for an organization. Like our sales have dropped 20% in the last, previous year, right? So that's the issue. Our sales have dropped. And so, now we start looking at things like what's the impact, what's the analysis, you start going through all these different things, and now we kind of get a general idea, like here's our issue, here's what we're trying to solve, and then, all the different pieces that are coming in, so that we can now determine, all right, if we're building training, what's the goal of that training? So that at the analysis stage, we want to capture all these things, and again, because we're going to be trying to, setting up a blueprint for our developers, for our instructional designers, for our stakeholders to buy into and sign off on what we're proposing, we want to give them everything that they have. So back to the analysis, you want to make sure you include things like statement of need and impact in your data analysis, right? How did you go about gathering this information, right? What was the summary of these? What type of outcomes do you propose that we go about, how we go about solving these, right? At the design phase, it is an iterative process. So you may make several different proposals of how you want to go about it before you dive completely into, let's say, setting up your course objectives, right? What type of obstacles? Who's your target audience, right? If you're going for accreditation, one of the things you need to get for your courses to be accredited is a lot of times they want to know your instructional designers, your subject matter experts. They want to have a bio on the people who helped to design and develop the program. So making sure, give you your place to capture all those type of things. So first stage, well, I guess it's really the second stage, right? First stage is really, as an organization, as a department, someone has determined there is a need, something is off, right? There's an issue. And then the first step, and again, why we use a lot of time the ADDIE model, we do the analysis. What's going on, right? So once that analysis is done, you want to capture it in your design document. So it's all in one location. Now, one of the key, and as we'll kind of showcase just a few things with Learning Design Tool as we go through this. One of the nice parts with the Learning Design Tool in using our tool, obviously Word's our operating system, so you've got a document. I could just click into any of these fields, right? What's my statement of need? And I could go in and I could type in, whatever that is. And I could just type it in, right? But a lot of times, you've already got this information captured other places. Maybe it's in one document, maybe it's in others. You can go through in some of the automations that we have on our ribbon. If you come up and choose Import Analysis Data, if I select this, and I just got to open it up on my other monitor, so let me pull this over. It gives you a place where I could come in and I could choose a document. Right, so if I choose Open, it's going to prompt me to go find one. All right, and sorry, it opened it on my other monitor, so let me pull this over. But I could come in, and I could now, where'd my, oh, this is here too. Everything keeps getting pulled over to my other monitor. But I could come in, and like if this was, let's say, some of the analysis, I could highlight it in this document, right? And I could say, all right, maybe this was one of my proposed outcomes. I could select proposed outcome, click import, and bring that over, right? And if this was, one of the obstacles, I could mark obstacles and I could choose import. And then if I was completely done with it, I could mark done. If I wanted to go to another document, I could click open up another document and do so. I mean, for our purposes, I'm not going to do that. But by using this, it will bring it in straight into those locations in the design template that the Learning Design tool does, and it brings it into the formatting. But again, analysis-wise, we want to make sure we're capturing it for our design document because it's that blueprint, because we need to get people to buy in and setting the stage, right? Here's the foundation. Here's why we're going through what we're about to talk about is important for them to have. That's the one we just did. So after that, right? So once you've kind of gone through and figured out, here's all the analysis. We've gone through, we've made some proposed outcomes. Maybe it's one, maybe it's a few. You may want to, at that point, maybe we've gotten signed off, or you want to put together a few things for one of these proposals. So we're going to start looking at determining determining our goal, the overall course goal, and then also determining our learning objectives. How we're going to get the learners to that goal. And so if I'm going to pop back over here to our template. This is really at what they would call instructional analysis, right? How we're going to start breaking these out. And things that we're going to be looking at here is, what's our course entry knowledge? So for someone, if, we've already at this point determined someone needs to go through the training, that training is our answer to solving this issue that we have. What type of course, what knowledge, where does the person who's coming into this need to be, right? So if we use my example of, let's say our sales are down, so this could be for, existing, to solve this, and maybe we've already built out a sales program for all new hires. That's already in place, and that's being taken care of. But this is for maybe the training that we're going to be building out is for existing sales reps, or existing tellers, or whatever your intended audience is. What do they need to know beforehand? Like, is there certain courses they need to take beforehand? Do they have to have a certain level of knowledge? And we're just kind of capturing this again because we're laying the groundwork to sell this to our stakeholders, to set the stage for our developers so they know they've got the blueprints of how they need to start building out this training as we go along. The course goal, right? we've already, based off that analysis, we've kind of laid out, here's some outcomes. Here's what we propose, right? So our course goal is if someone goes through this training, what is the end result, right? That they'll be able to increase their sales, their sales numbers by 15% in a given year, or whatever that is. But we're capturing it, right? So again, we know when it comes now, we're going to do in a moment, start building out our learning objectives. Our learning objectives are our steps to get our learners from wherever they're currently at to that course goal, right? So this is the X that marks the spot on our, X that marks the spot on our map for our learners, or for the people who are going through this, what they're going to get out of it. So set up our goals. Keep in mind kind of who our audience is, and that was one of the items on our analysis, who our target audience is. So we've got an idea of what type of knowledge, what background information, what pre-work they need to have before that. Now we can start building out our objectives, right? And obviously building learning objectives can be a complete, that's a whole other session. We've kind of done some on those as well, but let me show you how you can do it. Not getting into the be all end all of it, but let me show you how you can start building out these objectives in the learning design tool. So if we come over here, pop back into the tool. If we were to look here, so learning objectives, I could come in, I could just start typing them out. But ideally, we want to come back onto the ribbon, up into document automation controls. And if we choose the second option, which is this learning hierarchy, right here, learning hierarchy. When I click on this, again, it pulled it to my other window, so let me pull it over. We've given you a whole structure to help you build out your learning objectives. So this dialog box, as it goes through, it's breaking it down into a couple different areas, or two different areas. The top portion is where the program's going to, as we start building on our learning objectives, it's going to start loading them up in here, in that top portion. Where we're actually working is the bottom portion. And this is where we're going to actually start building our terminal and our enabling objectives. So if we were to look at this, at the beginning, what are we building? Is a terminal or an enabling objective? Because we haven't built anything to start with, we're going to start at the terminal objective. And now we get to determine, what do we do? Are we in the domain of knowledge? Are we in the domain of skills? Are we in the domain of attitude? And the reason why this matters, right? So if I choose knowledge, when we get to the next section, where we talk about learning levels and an item that we've put in called learning type, which is really to help us when we start going through to build out our assessments. But if I'm in knowledge and I choose learning level, we've got 6 different levels, from knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Where if I'm at skills, we've got the 5 of imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, naturalization. Or if I'm in attitude, we've got the 5 levels of receiving, responding, valuing, and characterizing. So in the learning design tool, we've built in these domains. And more importantly, so let's say I'm in knowledge and I choose the comprehension level, so the second level. The next section is going to show us all the different action verbs that fall within the knowledge domain of comprehension. So like classify and convert and defend and discuss. So you've got all of the action verbs for that specific learning level. Where if I was to, let's say, choose analysis, notice my action verbs have changed. Analyze, appraise, break down, calculate, categorize. So having an idea of, what we're trying to do, right? Again, why we've done analysis, why we're setting these goals, we now can start choosing, get into our domains and their learning levels, and then have help, so you're not trying to, necessarily remember what action verbs fall within which specific domain, or we stay away from learning objectives like the learners will understand, right? Amazingly enough, understand does not fall into a single action verb under any domain and under any learning level. But you're able to come through, you choose your learning level. If you choose your action verb, notice it will actually start populating it here. And I can go through and just start typing in now the remainder of my, my learning objective. Appraise the value of XYZ. So we start building these out, and now in here we've got items like what type of measurement criteria. So built in, we've given you some, but all of these are customizable, where I could come through and say, appraise the value of, my really poorly written learning objective right now, but appraise the value of XYZ, and how are we going to measure it? As exhibited by scoring 90% or better, right? And if I wanted to put a dependency on it, I could do all those type of things. But if I was happy, I would just click add. And now, because I've put it in a terminal, it's prompting me to create an enabling objective. Right? So I could come through and start building out my enabling objective, choosing my action verbs and all those items, and set all those things up, and I can just start quickly building those. And if I needed another terminal objective, I could mark that, and I just keep moving through. But once I was all set, I just click OK, and it will build out, it will bring in all my objectives right into my design document. Right? And if I need to, make changes, I could go back into learning hierarchy and start doing more of those. But we're using these objectives, right? Our terminal objectives will eventually become the structure, our module structures in our guidebooks, right? Our enabling objectives generally are going to become our lessons within that course. So if you use a 2-level hierarchy, right, we've got our overall course is made up of modules. Modules are generally your terminal objectives. Modules are then made up of lessons, which are generally your enabling objectives, right? So right out of the bat, by using a design document that's set up with terminal enabling objectives, if that's tied to a, whether it's a facilitator guide, whether you're going into e-learning, right? Your structure, 2-level hierarchy, terminal objectives are level 1, enabling objectives are level 2, and now you're that much further along on your development process. But we're using our design document to set the stage, right? So we've got our issue, we've made our, here's our proposed outcome, course goal, here's what we're trying to achieve. These are the steps we want our learners to go through, terminal and enabling wise, to get, each step up an enabling objective gets us closer to that terminal objective. Each terminal objective step gets us closer to our overall course goal. And now we've got a series of steps taking us to where we need to be. So questions about determining objectives, determining course goals, items like that. All right. After that, we want to look at kind of establishing instructional strategies, right? What do I mean about that? What do I mean establishing instructional strategies? So remember, we are in the world of adult learning, right? Adult learning, different than teaching kids. So one of the key things about teaching, adult education is when they're interested. I'm not saying all adults are interested in learning or are interested in learning what you want them to learn, But when they are engaged in it, they want to be part of that training. And so we want to set the stage in this design document of how we're going to basically apply adult learning strategies to make sure that they're engaged and we can get them on board. So let's flip back over to our design document template and start looking at some of these items. So in terms of instructional strategies, right, once we've gone through and we've set the stage, and what we're looking at right now, in terms of one of the things you want to come into at this stage, we're going to start looking at delivery format. So this is a big piece for me. I feel like a lot of times we've decided we need a training, and it's like, all right, I'm building e-learning or I'm building instructor-led training, versus saying, all right, start looking at this. Like, here's our issue. Here's kind of the analysis we've done. We've gone through, we've kind of set, here's our proposed outcome. Here's where the steps, right? The objectives that we just talked about. Here's all those different pieces, right? This is our state. Here's everything that we need to accomplish. Now let's determine what's the best way to do this, versus saying, I've got to put this as e-learning, or I've got to do this as, a micro-learning or a video, and then trying to jam everything into that mode of training, versus saying, here's everything I need to accomplish. Which one of these is going to get me there the best? So after determining your objectives, looking at your analysis, all of those things, that's where I'd start looking at how best do I go about this. So kind of choose the level of how, or, the format that we want to do this: e-learning, instructor-led training, virtual, micro-learning, VR, whatever it is. Then once we've gone through this, let's look at some basically 4 strategies you always want to include when you're working with adults. How are we going to involve them, right? So I would lay out, and our template is prompting you for this. Describe how the learner is involved in the planning and evaluation of their instructions. So how are you involving them, right? How are we going to affect their experience? So we've already kind of determined what our target audience is, right? That was part of analysis. So how are we going to take into effect their background, their prior knowledge, and incorporate that, or, into the actual training, right? So we want to lay these things out. Again, it helps us sell it to our stakeholders or get their buy-in. It helps our developers make sure that they're keeping that in mind, so that we're building, we'll use college terminology. We're building a 201 or a 301 course versus a 101 course that's really a waste of everybody's time in that training, because they already know it, because they do it on a daily basis. What's the relevance? So how are we going to show the learners that, the relevance and the impact? Why is this better terms? Why is this important to them? Right? As an organization, we kind of know why is it important to the organization. We need to make sure we can make it relevant to them, right? One of the things I just said a few moments ago is, when the learner's interested, the reason why training is important to the organization doesn't necessarily mean it's why it's important to the learner or the person you want to attend it. So we need to find a way, to speak to why it's important to them, right? Using my sales example again, right? Increasing sales 15% over a year, right? For the organization, right? Better, they've got better returns, investors are happy, all of those things. Maybe the relevance is for the learners or for the attendees going through this training, right? Their quarterly bonus goes up, or, they're able to do this. It's, they're able to take that vacation they want to do. But you find, and obviously probably not the relevance we're looking for here, but you get the idea is that we speak to it why it's important to them, and we capture it so that, again, we can show the stakeholders so they can help buy into it. We can help the developers so they can make sure when they're building the training, it's got, they're keeping that in mind as they go through. And then it's problem-centered. We want to make sure that we create training that's problem-centered for our learners, right? So it doesn't matter, just because we want it to be relevant, we want it problem-centered so that we've got a better chance of buy-in, right? That problem-centered, just because, sorry, I just drew a complete blank, but just because our train, because a computer program does, let's use PowerPoint as an example here. Just because PowerPoint gives you the ability to, have multiple animations and you can fly things in and all that, if, teaching someone to do that, while maybe it's neat, maybe it's cool, it doesn't solve their problem of, slides being, having too much text on it, right? So I know this is, I'm making this up off the top of my head, but if the issue is we've got slides that have too much text on it, let's talk about some other features within, maybe it's multiple slides, maybe it's using the morph transition, all of these different things that solve the problem of too much text on a slide versus just showing them a feature that it can do, right? So if we make training, take this back to a different example. When you're building your training, you want to make sure it's solving a problem that your attendees are having, your learners are having, the organization is having, versus just, hey, it's good to know. I'm not saying it's not good to know certain things, but in the realm of solving the major issue, we want to make sure we're doing problem-centered. That's relevant. That is taking into effect our learners' experience, and that we're involving them in that whole process. So we want to capture all of those things. The other piece that we're going to be looking at here is, when we're looking at this instructional analysis, all of this is our learner achievements, right? Think of learner achievements as how we're going to go through and evaluate, did the learner get to the goal, or get to our outcome of that specific learning objective, terminal or enabling. So using learning design tool, let me come back over here. All right, so if we look at our learner achievements, right, the following describes the activities that assess the learner's attainment of the objectives. So again, we could come through and we could just start typing this all out, but ideally, we want to come over to the document automations. If we go up here to learner achievements, if we choose our learner achievement, we can now come in, if I click on this, we're going to get prompted in the learner achievement table being generated. Do you want to document activities for the enabling objectives as well as the terminal objectives? So if I say yes, I'll create a learner activity items for both terminal and enabling objectives. If I said no, I would just get for terminal. So I'll say yes just so we can see this. But what the program will then do is it starts pulling in, it pulls in all our learning objectives. It's looked at the knowledge level, right? Learning level analysis, learning level comprehension. We're in the knowledge, in this case, we're in the knowledge domain. And now I've got some choices. I can come in, and where it's maybe a little bit hard to read at the moment, but this line here, same here, says click to choose a type of activity. So if I click in here, I've got a drop down, and these are all based off of the learning level that we chose, the domain that we're in. So we're in the knowledge domain of analysis. So different types of activities, learner achievement activities that make sense here, doing a debate, doing a case study critique, a problem solving exercise, a critical thinking exercise. So we've got these items that you can choose right out of here. And now you're able to come through and start putting in some of the different types of text that, the actual items that you'd want to talk about during this. And I could just start putting all this information in. Where in comprehension, on this one, because it's a different learning level, right? Different activities make sense here, right? So a comprehension, maybe a written assessment makes sense. Or, a learner-delivered presentation or a written report. The nice thing with the Learning Design tool is you can customize these. So if there's specific items that you use at different levels, you can type them in, and now when you drop down this list, it will give you your options, or have added in your options as well. So you can quickly come through and build all these things out as you need it. I was trying to just add in a few things here, just because we're going to see this in a little bit. All right, and then the last thing you want to kind of capture when you're looking at the instructional analysis area is your evaluation plan. And this isn't how we're evaluating the learners, right? We've already kind of set that up in these learner achievements. How are you evaluating the overall course? How was it successful? Was it not? How are we doing at trial phases? All of those things. And we're capturing it. Again, helps us sell it to our stakeholders. It helps for our developers. And they know. It helps our project managers, our training coordinators, whoever it is, know after we do this training, we're evaluating it based off of these standards, and everyone's on the same page. All right. Questions about this? All right. So the last piece of the design document is where we start putting in our course structure, our course sequencing. So, Pat, what's the difference between course structure and sequencing? Sequencing would be in which order do we want to teach things, right? Course structure is the actual pieces of it being laid out. So the reason why we put this way, when we start building, let's say we're back at that second stage where we were looking at building out our learning objectives. When we're putting in our learning objectives and our terminal and our enabling objectives, they're not necessarily always created in the best teaching order. Sometimes it's based off of when they came into the instructional developer's mind, or the subject matter expert, or after iterations, it's decided it works better if based off of how many days this is going to be going over, that this is taught before that. So sequencing is just setting up things in the order of which you want it to go, right? From top to bottom. Course structure plays a part in that, but it's putting in not only the sequence, but then the different pieces that fall within that sequence. This is where the Learning Design tool, especially if you're using our Program Leader Guide Pro, comes in very handy. So we're going to flip back over here. So course structure and sequencing, this is another automated item within the Learning Design tool. So if I unzoom this, if we come back up to our ribbon and we choose the last item under Document Automation Controls, which is this which is the course structure one. When we click on course structure, it gives us a dialog box that will show us, and obviously you would have more modules and lessons, terminal enabling objectives. But it basically takes your terminal objectives and the first terminal objective becomes module 1. Your enabling objectives underneath that would be 1.1, 1.2, and so on until you get to your next terminal objective. So it shows you objective numbers. It shows you the description, which is the actual objective that we've written. But I can now come in at this stage and give it an actual name, right? I'm just making stuff up. All right, so I could, let's say this is the analysis stage. I don't know. I'm just making these as I go. But I could go in and I can now update from, module 1.0 and lesson 1.1 and all those things, and give them names that actually make sense in regards to the training. All right, so I basically selected them, typed them in, click update. When I click continue, it gives me another dialog box. So on the left-hand side, it's basically showing us all the objectives in the order that we typed them into the learning design tool. The right-hand side is the order that we actually want to have them be taught in. So, in our case, we don't have a lot, but, you select what you want to move. So let's say there's my module, there's my lesson, there's my achievements. You move them over in whatever order you want. Once they're here, you can move them up, you can move them down. You set the stage of how you want them to happen. And once you're happy with the way it is, you click the continue button. Oh, this is, if you remember, I'm going to pretend I did this on purpose. Remember where we talked about dependencies for a moment? You can set dependencies like this has to happen before that. Well, in this case, my achievements have to happen after I do my actual modules. So in this case, I've got to move that up. So when I tried to continue with having my teaching after my achievements for this specific module and lesson, didn't work. So I just had to make that correction, and I can click continue. And what ends up happening is the program will now build out the beginnings of our course structure. For those that use Leader Guide Pro, you'll see, right, this detailed structure, detailed content outline. So here's my module, the analysis stage, and it's going to look a lot like what you see on that module page in Leader Guide Pro. Right? I could now, if I knew how much time I wanted to put in here, I could do that. Right? What's the goal? So here's my terminal objective that I already typed out. But if I want to give it a short description, I could type that in. If I had specific references and resources, I could start capturing that. Right? It's brought over my learner achievement information, so I've got that information for when I start developing. And then it gets down into the next one. There's my first module. My first lesson. So the objectives, if I wanted to give it an overview. But now we start looking at our instructional content. So for those that use Leader Guide Pro, when we drop and we start looking at this instructional content, these are all the different content blocks that Leader Guide Pro uses. If you don't use Leader Guide Pro, these are still the actions, right? Like make a key point, show a slide, right? You can still capture all this information. It won't automate out into Leader Guide Pro. But you can now start as deep as you want to go in kind of setting the structure, or the the line items, the actions we want to be taking within each of these lessons, you can do that, right? Like we're going to do a audio activity, right? And I can now describe that. Right? And I'm just using some random text at the moment. Right? And if I had any text I wanted to put in here, I could. And then if I had more items I wanted to add in on the ribbon, I just need to go up and I can choose to add in another content block, which will drop it in, right? It gave it to me at the bottom. And I can now come through and choose, different items. So like a knowledge check. Right? And I could go through and start putting in all the different pieces I want. If I want to, start looking at, the next piece, my next piece in this was the analysis stage, or the achievement activities, all of those things. I could capture all of these and start flushing all of that out. So when we look at it in terms of, a design document, ideally, we'll look at this as a full document. There's specific things, right? We are building this as a blueprint. So we want to have, all the different items that we want our developers to go through, that our subject matter experts are looking at. It's a sales document for our stakeholders, the clients. So we're capturing all this information. Want to show you what it looks like. It's just, for whatever reason, my words being slow with me today. It just pulled up, so let's flip back over. So if we were to look at this, using the learning design tool, gives you a cover page, customizable. It builds out when you can select which cover page you want to have when you build it out. Right? A place to, your inside front cover, legal notice, compliance, different, acknowledging who helped you with this, any of those type of things. Table of contents is built out. But then, we're capturing all our content analysis. Right? It's all in one location. Right? Building out our instructional analysis of what's the pre-work they need to have, the prior knowledge, the course goal. We've got all our learning objectives, right? We get into our instructional strategies. We're capturing all this, how we're involving everybody. How do we want to deliver it? Laying out the achievement activities so that when it comes time to build those out, we've kind of captured all the ideas of how we want to go about it, how we're evaluating people. And then we get into our course structure, right? We've got all of this. So if that's all those are the key pieces that you need in a design document. If you've got that, you have completely set the ground. You've set a strong foundation to develop, to get buy-in from the stakeholders, from the clients. That will get you where you need to go. With Learning Design Tool, let's now jumpstart your development phase. So the way this works, I'm going to get back out of here. So when we're on the Learning Design Tool ribbon, once we've started going through and we brought in all these things, now we can start extracting this to different items. So let me do this. I'm going to, I'll pull that over in a moment. Let's look at it in terms of, first, where we can take it. So if I go over to, on the ribbon, come over to course outline, or extract course outline. I select this. I don't know why it keeps opening up on my other monitor. But we can take this design document, we can send it to different things. And the ones that we're going to look at two today. We are going to look at the middle two. Do you want to send it to Leader Guide Pro, and do you want to send it to PowerPoint? So we'll do the PowerPoint one first. So what this allows us to do, right? I've got a PowerPoint open. Let me actually... Why is it... Oh, because I've got my... I can choose PowerPoint. So make sure PowerPoint is open to a new blank presentation and its window is minimized. Right, so open up a blank presentation, close up that one, and I'll minimize it. But with PowerPoint selected, if I just click OK, it's going to run through in all the different, several different areas out of this design document are going to be brought over directly into a PowerPoint. So if I come back to this PowerPoint that was open, right? So we've got a title slide, and it's what I would consider a vanilla PowerPoint, right? I'm not saying like, hey, you're good to go, you got your PowerPoints built. But no, if you were now to hand this off to your developer with all the different pieces, like they now need to start building out slides that fall into this, right? What's the overview for the analysis, right? So this was pulled from that from our module page of our course structure, right? Stuff about the learner achievements, right? Phase 1 overview. So this was our, that's our first lesson, right? The audio activity, that was that first content block I put in there, right? Knowledge check, brought that in there. Right, so all of these different items, and let's flip back over here, right, where those items that we're looking at, that's these items here, audio activity, knowledge check, that's where those were pulled from. So again, depending on how deep you go into this, I've now brought that over, and whoever's building out my PowerPoints, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else, they've got everything, kind of the ideas of what we need, and they can now make visually appealing slides that help drive those points home. All right. From there, we can go. Those slides can go help with your instructor-led training. You can bring those into Articulate, right? You can use iSpring, and you can start building out your e-learnings from that, right? So you've got these options. So from design document into instructor-led training, or design document into into e-learning through PowerPoint. You can go that route. Right, so you've got that capability. We can also, under course outline, go directly into Leader Guide Pro. Right? So if I choose Leader Guide Pro and click OK, it's going to start, it will set up almost like it's a temporary, well, it's basically, it's a in-between document. It brings everything over into the Leader Guide Pro format, and then you get to go and apply your collections. So it's got your cover page, all your upfront information, all that stuff you've developed out in Leader Guide Pro, all those templates, you can then apply from here. And that's what this dialog box is talking about. This document is ready for final conversion to Leader Guide Pro. So we took your design document, got into a base Leader Guide Pro document for then you to apply the collections you want. But what we'll look at that just based off what you have. Leader Guide Pro cover page, up front, table of contents is built out. When you go from Learning Design Tool into Leader Guide Pro, in addition to your modules and lessons that are set up in your design document, we bookmark, I like to think of them as hamburger buns, but we put an introduction module with a preparation lesson, in front of it, and we put a summary module with a review lesson at the bottom. So we've, just by bringing it over, you get to tell them what you're going to tell them, module and lesson, tell them what you tell them, module and lesson at the end, and then everything from the design document is the sandwich meat, it's the lettuce, it's the pickles, it's the onions of your training from your design document. but it's brought all those things in, right? We've got all our upfront material based off the collections. But then filling it out, right? It's this is our introduction. Let me get down to the actual material. But there's our, our analysis stage, that first module we built out. Here's the goal, right? If I had put in time on that, on my design document, that would have come in. But the overview's brought in, right? Started putting in all our modules and put in our modules and lessons, and then the different content blocks that we had. So not only can the Learning Design Tool gives you a great place just to build out your design documents, but it will completely jumpstart, even turbocharge your development process, because you can get it that much further down the line, right? Get the materials into the hands of the people who are going to be developing it, whether it's you, whether it's L&D specialists or subject matter experts, that they can now start working on it directly within Leader Guide Pro or in PowerPoint directly, or we can send it directly into a Word document as well, from the ribbon on Learning Design Tool. So I know I've thrown a lot at you in regards to design documents and then kind of showcasing how the Learning Design Tool helps you through that whole process. But what questions do you have for me at this point? All right. Well, if you don't, I will give you 3 minutes back into your afternoon. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will talk to you soon.